And two people here with me right now know about rich relationships, and they are Gil and Renèe Beavers. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Look, I know you guys as another couple who has a rich relationship, because my husband and I love being around other couples who are like, yes.
It's contagious.
It is contagious.
Yes.
It is so
And it's
No pun
refreshing.
intended.
No pun, right, no pun intended. There's so much fun to being in the right relationship, to marrying correctly.
Yeah.
But it doesn't always start that way.
Unfortunately.
We have to build into this so wonderful relationship being right.
Yes.
Give us a little bit of background and testimony, you guys, about how you all came together in the first place. Where did the love story begin?
It started with a pencil, believe it or not. I know it sounds crazy.
Gil, come on now.
It did. She pushed her pencil off her desk when she was 13 years old.
You haven't known each other that long?
Yes.
Yes, we have. And I was just happened to be walking down the hall. We were in this summer youth program back in Michigan. We're originally from Detroit. And she put that pencil off the table. I picked it up, and what did I say?
I said I was going to say hi to you, but I didn't think you would respond. And he said, I always say hi to lovely ladies. And that was it.
And you were 13.
Yeah.
And I was 14.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so sweet. That is like ridiculous sweet.
Yeah.
So that was the beginning of our story, and then I actually joined the military, so all the vets, that time.
Yes.
And for 22 and a half years, I served in the Air Force.
Wow.
We traveled all over the world, lived all over the world. That was a part of our growing up. Really, we really just grew up in the military as husband and wife. We had some isolated places that we lived in.
Wow.
Minot, North Dakota. When you're from Detroit, Michigan, it was kind of a bit of a culture shock.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, just North Dakota, and I have friends there now. But, when I first started hearing about North Dakota, I was like, no, I'm not going there.
No, yeah.
All the things that they were good for didn't apply to us. They had good schools, and we were lucky we didn't have kids, and, it was good to buy a house, and we didn't want to buy a house. And so all the things that it was known for, it didn't benefit us. It was good for us.
Because we were only 21. We actually...
Oh, wow, y'all were just babies.
Yes.
We were really babies.
Yeah.
But it made us closer, and it made us learn to depend on one another.
Mm-hmm.
It helped us to realize that when you make those vows, you should leave your mother and father. Well, that happened for us. It was really good for our relationship.
And that was actually before we were in Christ, too.
Wow.
So, but we still had those core values and character traits that really appealed to each other, that we decided that we were going to make a commitment to each other, even at that early age.
It's so amazing that you can look back now and say, hey, we understand what was going on now. We understand what God was doing inside of us. Because I think that when you read, a man shall leave his father and mother, become one with his wife. I've heard mothers say to their son, now, you ain't going to leave your mama. No, you don't leave your mama. You really don't.
No.
But you do become one with your wife.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a totally different relationship.
It is.
But it's a very, very important one.
Yes, it is.
So tell us why it was important for you to step out of this childhood relationship into this blossoming marriage, and what's transformed in your life to allow both of you to receive Christ and step into married life correctly?
Well, for me, I grew up in a very dysfunctional family, and so I knew that I didn't even want to get married. I wasn't one of those people that I dreamt of being married. But when Gil and I started dating, I realized this was somebody I wanted to spend the rest of my life with. And so I realized that if we were going to do this, there were certain things I didn't want to do. So I knew I needed some examples. And so when we got to Germany, I got saved and gave my heart to the Lord. But for us, we just realized that it was going to be till death do us part. We made it a commitment that when we got married, it was going to be forever. And we were willing to do whatever it took to make sure that it was forever.
And for me, it was kind of along the same lines, but my parents got divorced when I was very young, about 7 or 8 years old. And so I really didn't see an example of what it was like to grow up in a normal, what they would say, normal household with mom and dad and those things. But I decided, even at a very, very young age, that I knew I wanted to be married, even as a little kid. And I knew I wanted a wife. But I just decided that when we came together and I met Renee and we really just clicked over years, I said, you know what, this is somebody I know I want to spend the rest of my life with. And she actually led me to Christ.
Wow, I love that. While you were where?
While we were living in Germany.
Oh my gosh. When you look back, there's got to be so many special little moments that you can say, wow, God, I saw you do it here. I saw you do something here. I saw you do something here.
Yeah.
And you can't take those moments for granted.
No, because those moments create your memory and they write your story. And it becomes the part of your life that identifies you. And so that's the thing that I love about how God does. The Bible says, don't despise small beginnings, how all those little bitty steps create this big life. And when you look at it on paper, when you look at it in its totality, you're like, God's hand was weaved through every single part of it.
Yeah, it's there are people right now who are spending their time together for the first time, husbands and wives. They've never been together so closely together than right now.
Yes.
And it's not necessarily turning out well.
No. And it's because most people, I always say that marriage is the school where you learn about yourself, but very few people have the skills. They've not been taught. They don't understand conflict resolution, communication, selflessness, and understanding who they are. And I think all those are the things that it has been our heart to really impart that into the next generation, because people need mentors.
And they're alone, like you just said, they're alone, and now it's kind of unmasking some things that may have been left dormant or ignored or things like that, to where now it's in the forefront and you can't avert it or go around it because you're stuck in under one roof together and you can't go anywhere. So now you're kind of forced to face it, and it's really showing you that we have some things that we need to work on. We call them growth areas. We have some growth areas that we really need to start wondering, how do we develop these things?
It's and I think one of the things that throws people off is that immediately we want to place blame one place or the other. And a marriage is responsible for both of the parties. It's not one side or the other. I don't care what is going on. Each of you have a part.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's part solution or part problem or problem and God is the solution.
Absolutely.
But it's got to be a recognition of the issue and a recognition of the solution.
We were working with a couple last night and we talked about how there's one problem. You have to figure out what the problem is, but then there's countless solutions.
Yes.
Most couples have countless problems without any solutions.
There you are.
And so that's our heart, is to provide them with tools and community and support to help them to understand that you're not alone. You're not the only couple struggling. It's nothing new. And especially in our culture, we don't like to get help. We don't want people to know we're struggling.
Right, because, oh my goodness, should anyone find out?
Right.
But while you're masking the issue is getting larger and larger and larger, and you find yourself in that place where it is almost in your sight unmanageable.
It is. It's so funny that you said about the blame, because we call it the blame thrower. People break out that blame thrower, especially when you're going through that challenging issue that you don't know how to deal with it or how to overcome it, and you really are stuck. So now you are kind of forced to say, we need to get some tools and some abilities and some skills to say, you know what, we need to really develop our relationship together.
And it's the relationship together. And you said it earlier too, is that, you wanted to be married and you didn't even see a possibility of divorce.
No.
And that's my husband and I. We were like, no,
that doesn't exist in our vocabulary.
Right. That's not something that's a part of our reality. It doesn't exist in our vocabulary. So that means we have to do X, Y, and Z in order for that not to be an issue.
And we didn't want to just be married and be miserable. We didn't want to just be married and coexist. We wanted to be one. And I understood, and Gil understood, that Christ has to be the center. So if he created us, he created marriage, so he must have some instructions for it. And so that's how we kind of just went through the Bible and, well, what does the Bible say about this? And how do we apply this to our life? And so I think that our heart has always been, because Gil was always big on, where is the scripture at for that? Knowing it and having it hidden in your heart. But how do you teach people how to apply that? And so I think the combination of all those things and all the things we've gone through and not having parents as adults has really put in our heart a desire and a mantle to bring marriage to the forefront in a positive light.
How have you been able to share that with not just people that you minister to, but your own children? your own family members, because it's different. It's the people that you are with in close proximity that become the ones that need your ministry the most, but it is the hardest for you to get that ministry out to them. How do you do it?
One of the things that we thought we had this conversation not too long ago, and one of the things that we recognized, because like I said at the beginning, I didn't have that example. And I think sometimes if you have your parents, if they're going through a conflict, and if they were to have the conflict in front of you, at least you would know what it looks like to kind of go through the steps,
yes,
go through the motions of saying, wait a minute, they weren't knocked down, they weren't cursing, and they weren't calling each other out of their names. They were kind of focusing on the problem and trying to come together as a solution. But when you have those family members that you see from afar that are kind of going through some difficulties and things that they don't want to really address, all we can do is model it before them. Just the things that I was just describing, show them what it's really like to deal with things.
I think that speaks very loudly, and I'm going to tell you why, because it's not coming out of your mouth, it's coming out of your actions.
Yes.
And that makes such a difference. We know as parents, our children don't do what we say.
Oh no, they do what they see us doing.
They do what they see us doing.
Exactly.
They literally repeat daddy's footsteps. I have seen little girls go over to the kitchen and pull the bowl the same way that mom pulls the bowl. So you can't say that doesn't exist. The modeling doesn't exist. But you've got to understand that every time you say it, every demon from hell heard it.
Exactly.
And that's when you are challenged to be it in front of these family members, these children, these cousins, aunties, uncles. It is such an old adage to believe that the seniors in the household know everything. Sometimes the seniors in the household need to see the model.
Exactly.
So they can be relieved of the pressure, because they may not have had a model to see before you came in the door.
Exactly. And a lot of times those seniors, we have couples that we've worked with that have been together for years, and they just were not equipped.
Right.
And so all we did was just provided them with some new tools and some new skills and a new way of looking at something on how to overcome some of those issues and challenges.
I think that's what makes it gold. That simply is what makes it gold. It's you guys give the tools that allow this couple to be able to see, do, work it out step by step by step. Well, we're going to examine this more step by step by step with this book called Rich Relationships, Our Marital Code. I like that.
To oneness.
To oneness. To oneness. This is a beautiful moment to be able to grab your pen and paper, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for you to take some notes so that you can be fully equipped. As the Beavers are saying, be fully equipped to be able to walk out a marriage that just doesn't hold it all in, but releases themselves into being one. First one with Christ, and then one with each other. Look, I know it sounds like, I don't know if I can do that. Stop it. Stop it. You can do it all.